Well, it's that time of the year again. Fantasy football is upon us. I just want to make a little video for anybody that needed a little additional help for their drafts. Feel free to leave comments and post your own opinion. We're going to start off by doing quarterbacks. You have three or four quarterbacks that tend to be at the top of the league every year. This year, it will be Aaron Rodgers at the top, followed by Breeze and Manning. Rodgers for the fact that he tends to rush a decent amount per game and get a few rushing touchdowns every year. Last year, he actually averaged 3.85 points per game on the ground, whether by rushing or touchdown. Uh, then Breeze and Manning are very consistent every year. You know they're going to be at the top. An honorable mention to Matt Schaub, who actually finished second in fantasy points last year, but he is oft injured, and you do not want your number one quarterback going down early in the season, leaving you with a big hole to fill the rest of the year. My sleeper pick for quarterback would be Matt Stafford, actually. As bad as the Lions are, he has Calvin Johnson to throw to every game, which is always a bonus. Um, Tony Scheffler should be a great addition at tight end. Give him some shorter options. Calvin Johnson is more of a deep threat. And having Javid Best in the backfield, even though he's not a typical every down running back, he will be able to be productive in the passing game by utilizing the screen game. He's an impact type player and should be able to make some big plays out of screens, so that will help Stafford as a little dump off option. Uh, then you have running backs, arguably the most important position in fantasy football, so you want to get those right. Chris Johnson and Adrian Peterson are obviously the top tier of the running backs. They're going to stand out all by themselves up there. Maurice Jones-Drew follows shortly behind, and an honorable mention to Ray Rice. Now, the only reason Ray Rice is coming in behind Jones-Drew, as a lot of people have Rice above Jones-Drew, is because Ray Rice does not get a lot of red zone touches. And while Maurice Jones-Drew averaged or got 16 touchdowns last year, Ray Rice only had 8 and only 7 on the ground to Maurice Jones-Drew's 15. Um, my sleeper for running back is actually a lot of people are going with Kareem Huggins, the running back out of Hofstra that plays for the Bucks. That is a popular choice, but I'm going to go in a different direction as he is not really much of a sleeper anymore, as everyone is talking about him. I'm going to go with Beanie Wells, the running back for the Cardinals. He came on very strong at the end of last year and had an excellent showing in the playoff game against the Packers. With Kurt Warner gone, the Arizona Cardinals should change into more of a run or even just a balanced offense. And in addition to Larry Fitzgerald still being the deep threat that he is, Beanie Wells should find some nice holes in the defensive line and be able to rack up some rushing yards. Onto wide receivers, Andre Johnson is obviously the top wide receiver in the class. He will get you probably right around top 2 or 3 points every week. He averages a good amount of receptions every week. And Moss and Wayne come in at second and third. Wayne moves above Austin because Miles Austin has a lot of contention in Dallas with Dez Bryant, the rookie, going to take away some of his targets, and obviously Jason Witten is always one of Romo's favorite targets, and the rushing game in Dallas is also very good with Felix Jones, Mary Barber, and Tashard Choice. So Miles Austin might not get as many looks as he did last year, so that could take away from his productivity. Now Wayne also has competition in Indy for catches with Dallas Clark and the other wide receivers there, but it's not the same class that Dallas's is. Uh, my sleeper for wide receivers is, can't believe I'm calling him a sleeper, but actually Terrell Owens. A lot of people forgot about him last year because of the terrible year he had in Buffalo, but I don't believe that was because of T.O. I believe that was because of how terrible all of Buffalo's quarterbacks are. They don't have anyone to throw the ball up there. I think now that he is paired up alongside Chad Ochocinco and Carson Palmer, who is not a great but a very consistent quarterback, I think T.O.'s numbers will go back up, and he might not finish inside the top 7, but I think he'll have a very productive fantasy year and a lot of people are forgetting about him. He's falling down in drafts, so you can grab him late as a nice second option. Um, Another receiver people like for fantasy is actually Greg Jennings from the Packers because of how good Aaron Rodgers is. But the only problem with Jennings is, like Austin, there's a lot of competition for catches in Green Bay with Donald Driver still holding strong, James Jones looking like he's going to have a good year as the 3 option, and Jermichael Finley emerging as one of the game's best tight ends. There should be too much competition for Jennings to have a great fantasy year. Great receiver, yes. Great fantasy receiver, no. Tight ends, obviously Antonio Gates is always at the top of the league in tight end production. Philip Rivers is a big fan of Antonio Gates, especially in the red zone. So you'll get a lot of points out of Antonio Gates. Uh, Vernon Davis is poised to have another big year, as Alex Smith really depended on him last year, and he got a lot of touchdown looks, a lot of red zone looks. And Dallas Clark will round out the top 3. Obviously, Peyton Manning likes to dump it off to Dallas Clark a lot. Dallas Clark does a lot with the ball. He's very good after the catch. So he will always be consistent because of Peyton Manning being his quarterback. My honorable mention would be Jermichael Finley, but like Greg Jennings, there's just a lot of competition for catches in Green Bay, and he might lose some productivity because of all the other options they have there. He should have a great year, just probably not top tier yet, not while all the options are still there for our Aaron Rodgers. Not to mention Ryan Grant is also a very good running back, so there might not be as many catches available for Jermichael Finley as the top 3 guys. Um, my sleeper to watch as a tight end would be actually Jermaine Gresham, the tight end for the Cincinnati Bengals. He stepped right in. He's a rookie, stepped right in and took over the number 1 tight end spot because it was void in Cincinnati. They had no one there. Carson Palmer is a very uh, consistent quarterback. He'll give you, your chances every week for catches, and Jermaine Gresham should move in pretty nicely there. He's had a strong preseason so far, a few catches each game, including a touchdown, and that should carry over into the regular season, especially with the wide receiver threats they have. There should be plenty of options for him in the middle of the field and in the red zone. Kickers, not really anything special about kickers. It's a hard position because you need a team that has a good offense. But if it's too good and they score a lot of touchdowns, then you're only getting the point for the extra point. So what you actually want is an offense that's good but not great red zone percentage, so you get a lot of field goal attempts, which lead to a lot more points. Nate Kading would be the head of my class for kickers. He's been very consistent as of late. And then the 2 and 3 would be Ryan Longwell and Rob Baronis. Uh, Honorable mention to Crosby from the Packers, but once again, the Packers tend to have a very good red zone offense as far as scoring touchdowns. So you're going to lose points on that because of, instead of field goals, he will be kicking a lot of extra points. My sleeper, if there is one for kickers, would actually be Sebastian Janikowski because the Raiders improved their offense enough that they should be able to move the ball a little bit, but they still might not be able to punch it into the end zone because it's still not the best offense. So you could actually pick up a lot of points for field goals instead of extra points with Janikowski. Defense. Defense is always a hard one because you usually want to platoon 2 defenses so that you can have options every week. If you only have 1 defense, then you could run into a week where they're playing a great offensive team and it's a high-scoring game, and then you have no other option. The defense I like the most this year is actually Pittsburgh, back at my number 1, because of their easy schedule as far as the offensive teams they face, and they have a very good schedule for weeks 15 and 16, which are most uh, leagues' playoffs, and that should really help you down the stretch. New Orleans comes in at number 2. They force a ton of turnovers, and they have scored 8 defensive touchdowns last year, which is always a big bonus. Anytime you can get 6 points automatically from a defense, that's a huge bonus. And they do very well at taking the ball away. They also have the 3rd easiest schedule as far as the offensive teams they face in weeks 15 and 16. So once again, for most leagues' fantasy playoffs, they're a good bet to give you a good amount of points when you need them the most. My 3rd team would be San Francisco. They actually scored the most fantasy points as a defense last year, and it's looking like they're going to have another good year. The defense is much improved under Mike Singletary, and Patrick Willis is a force in the middle of that defense. So you should be able to get solid productivity out of the San Francisco defense every week. Um, the New York Jets would be my honorable mention. They play a decently hard schedule. They have the 21st ranked easiest schedule as far as the offensive they face, and it does get hard in weeks 15 and 16 in the playoffs, which is again when you need them the most. So they fall to 4. My defense to watch for the sleeper pick would be the Carolina Panthers. They have a very easy schedule throughout the entire season, and that can lead to some low scoring games because of their rushing offense, also, which keeps most of their games low scoring because that's the pace they like. So, in order to keep low scoring games, the defense has to perform, and they've been working on that, and this should show in this season, along with their easy schedule, should lead to some low-scoring games. So you should get some points out of that. Not a lot of turnovers, but the points from the scoring should be enough to equal that out with some of the higher turnover teams. All right, so that was your fantasy analysis for people who are starting fantasy football or just looking for a little extra help. Good luck with your teams and have a good season.